The worst part of social anxiety is not necessarily the symptoms. It's not necessarily all the anxiety and the fear and the worrying. And look, that's bad enough. I mean, that is awful. But really, the worst part of social anxiety, I think, in my opinion, is how much it messes up your life. And the reality is, and I linked some data in the show notes of the episode, that people with social anxiety are much more likely to be dissatisfied with their life than people who do not have social anxiety. They're much less likely to have strong, intimate partners. They're much less likely to have strong friendships. They're much more likely to be dissatisfied with their work life. And pretty much every aspect of your life can be tainted by social anxiety because the reality is, man, how many places can you go where dealing with people is an option, right? Pretty much anywhere you go, you're dealing with people. And if you have social anxiety, sometimes it's not even the dealing with people that's so bad, it's the obsessing about it afterwards. So you could have a situation where you could go out in public and just have a day by yourself. But even having a day by yourself, even if you were not involved with other people, you're not talking to other people, that still can be a very miserable day. First of all, maybe you feel alone. You feel alone because you wish you had more friends, but you don't have any friends, so you have to go out by yourself. But then you realize, oh, wait, it's not just talking to people that makes me anxious. I don't even like to be looked at by people. It makes me uncomfortable to just have eyes on me. If I go out to lunch by myself, I feel like, well, am I doing something wrong? Is this weird? Should I not be by myself? What are people going to think if I'm by myself? You want to go to the movies by yourself, but you can't because you're worried about what other people. It's nonstop. It's constantly obsessing about every little thing that's going on. And this is the saddest reality about social anxiety. And this is why there is such a correlation between social anxiety and depression and substance use, because people with social anxiety are often very unhappy with their lives, and understandably so. Because if you have social anxiety, you can't do a lot of the things that you want to do. And this is where we have to distinguish between social anxiety and, for example, introversion and extroversion. I think there are a lot of people who have social anxiety who have convinced themselves that they're really introverted. I used to tell myself this all the time. I would tell myself, I just don't like to go out and talk to people and to socialize and all this stuff. And the reality was I was just afraid to do it. Right. And I was actually craving that. I wanted more of that, but I was afraid to do it. So to sort of rationalize it in my mind, I would just tell myself, I guess I just don't like it. And look, I'm not saying that you can't be both, right? It could be that you're socially anxious and you just don't really like to talk to people much. But a lot of times we just convince ourselves of that. And because we become so hopeless about our future prospects of making friends and dating, we just sort of accept the fact that, well, this is who I am. I guess I'm not really good at this, or I don't like this. So I'm just going to shut this part of my life off. But then we're miserable and we're unhappy because we're lonely and we're missing human connection. And that's normal. And I think it's really important that you're honest with yourself. Is it that you don't like to socialize? Or is it that you're just afraid to socialize? And if it's that you're just afraid to socialize, well, that in a sense is a good thing because we can do something about that. You can overcome your fear. It's not easy, but you can. And then you can finally go out and live your life. And this isn't just with, friendships and relationships and dating. This can happen with your career, right? Like if you have really bad social anxiety, but let's say you're really interested in, I don't know, sports or something like that, and you want to be a sports radio show host or something like that, but you have really bad social anxiety, well, you're going to think to yourself, how am I going to do that? Or maybe you want to go to medical school, but you're afraid of these large lecture halls where you have to talk to people. What pretty much anything you do involves being around people. I mean, there really isn't a career that you can just be alone unless you're going to be like a writer, right? Most careers involve other people. So a lot of times we will shut down our career options. We will think to ourselves, well, what's a career option I can do that wouldn't be so anxiety provoking, rather than really exploring what we might be interested in. Because again, we will shut off our interests if it interacts with the social anxiety. If doing that thing makes me uncomfortable, I'm just going to tell myself, maybe that's not for me. This is a really sad reality for people with social anxiety that I think people don't really acknowledge, either to themselves or people in the world who don't have social anxiety don't really realize this. that people who are suffering in this way are really living very unsatisfying lives. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is not to make you feel miserable and hopeless about your future. In fact, I'm hoping that this will be a motivator for you, because the reality is we allow social anxiety to run our life. Okay. And sometimes it's not our fault. We're not trying to let it run our life. It's just that powerful. It makes us avoid everything that is uncomfortable to us. And again, if we're uncomfortable in pretty much every situation, right, again, I've talked about sometimes social anxiety gets so bad, even walking down the street can be uncomfortable because you're afraid that people are going to look at you. So if you're in a place in your life where not only do you have really bad social anxiety, but you're dissatisfied with your life, this actually, I think we can use this as a motivator. We have to look at what's going on here. I'm unhappy. I'm really unhappy. I've written off so many career options. I've lost out on so many friendship opportunities. I haven't been able to date, all this stuff. And sometimes we can get really down about that. And that can be a depressing thought because it's like, man, why can't I just live the life I want to live? But let's flip that on its head. Hey, maybe today is the start of something different. You know what? I do have a lot of goals in life and I have a lot of dreams and a lot of things that I would like to do. And this social anxiety has gotten in the way of pretty much everything I've wanted to do. It's time to get mad at the anxiety. You know, I used to think for a long time, I thought that anxiety was my friend. I think a lot of people think this way, especially when you're anxious, because especially when the anxiety is really bad, the anxiety becomes your friend because it prevents embarrassing moments, right? So let's say you're around a group of people, the anxiety kicks in and says, okay, don't do that. Don't say this, don't do anything too showy. We don't want people to have eyes on us. We don't want to get bullied, right? Especially when we're younger and we see other kids get bullied. It teaches us to kind of hang back, sit in the corner. And we get this confirmation that this is actually a good thing. This is what it convinces us. Hey, at least I didn't get bullied today. Hey, at least I didn't get picked on. At least I didn't do anything embarrassing today. At least I didn't make a fool of myself today. And we start to convince ourselves that, anxiety is helping us. Anxiety, bad as it is, it does help me sometimes. It does prevent disasters. But look what happens when all you do is try to prevent disasters. You end up living a life that you don't want to live. You end up living a life with absolutely no risks involved. And that isn't a life worth living, I don't think. And I think we all know that because if it was, we would be satisfied with where we're at. So this is a time to look at our anxiety and start to get angry at it. And start to realize, you know what? I'm pissed off. Like I don't get to do anything I want to do. And this sort of change in perspective from seeing your anxiety as your friend to seeing it as your enemy, seeing it as this is something that is taking my life away from me. And I don't want that anymore. This is not fair to me. And I'm going to use that to motivate myself, to push myself to do things I'm uncomfortable with. We've talked about obviously exposure therapy in the past, and you can call it whatever you want, but it's basically just doing difficult things, doing things out of our comfort zone, getting out of our comfort zone, doing things that are hard. We need a motivator for that. A lot of times the biggest thing that gets in the way from actually just taking action and doing the exposure therapy and doing the hard things is we just don't have the motivation because we don't see the point. It's like, what's the point? I'm going to go do this thing and I'm going to completely embarrass myself. And then I'm going to go home and feel like shit and ruminate and obsess about everything that just happened. Well, what's the point of that? You know what? I'd rather just sit at home. I'm not going to go to that party. Why would I go to that party when I can just sit at home and be comfortable? The reason why you should go to that party is because we don't want to be comfortable anymore. We're sick and tired of being comfortable. We're sick and tired of doing things just because it's easy. Because look at all the things we've lost out on. All the dates we've missed, all the friendships we've missed, the career options we've missed, even just, again, enjoying your Saturday. You want to go do something, but you can't do it because you're afraid that people are going to be there and they're going to be looking at me. People are going to be everywhere. There's nowhere you can go where there's not going to be people. So as much as this data, if you look at it, and again, I dropped some research at the bottom here, can feel disheartening because, it doesn't look great on paper, right? People with social anxiety don't have great outcomes when it comes to life satisfaction. They're really unhappy with their lives, understandably so, because in a sense, if your anxiety is really bad, you can't live your life. Okay. You can't plan for the future. You can't get excited for the future. You can't be hopeful about the future. It's understandable why you feel this way. But this is exactly why I think this should be an encouraging message to you. Hey, it's time to turn this thing around. It's time to look at the anxiety as an enemy. Every time the anxiety tells you, no, no, don't do that. Let's play it safe today. Let's do the comfortable thing. Let's stay at home. You got to tell yourself, no, that's the anxiety trying to warp your reality again. It's trying to convince you that, yeah, let's do that. This is a good idea. Let's stay home. Let's be safe today. No, I've listened to you my entire life. I've been told over and over again, you've been telling me to stay inside, to be safe, to not say this, to not do that, to not go out to the movie theater by myself, to whatever the case is, whatever it is you want to do. And where's that gotten me? It's gotten me nothing but misery. It's gotten me nothing but hopelessness, dissatisfaction in my life. I'm sick and freaking tired of listening to my anxiety. So this is a message to anybody out there who is not only struggling with the symptoms of it, but maybe you're struggling with the motivation. You're trying to figure out why. Why should I even bother? It doesn't get any better. It doesn't feel any better. Every time I go out, it makes it worse. I feel embarrassed. But you know what? Aren't you sick and tired? Aren't you sick and tired of being bullied and bossed around by your anxiety? And look, I know that you are. I'm sure you've had that thought before, but we really need to take this message and really put it into action. I am not going to listen to my anxiety. Here's a very simple way of looking at this. We're going to do the opposite of everything our anxiety tells us to do. This is actually a technique used in DBT therapy. It's called opposite action, where you have an emotion and your emotion wants you to do an action. But every time you do that action, it causes more problems. So instead, we're going to do the opposite. It's very simple, right? This is just a simple way to go about your life from here on out. Whatever my anxiety tells me, I'm going to do the opposite. If my social anxiety says, don't go to that party, I'm going to go to that party. If I'm walking past somebody and my social anxiety says, put your head down, don't say hello, don't make eye contact, I'm going to make eye contact and I'm going to say hello. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I don't care how embarrassing it is, because I got to start living my life, man. I am sick and tired of not living. So this is a very simple way of looking at it. It's just, I'm just going to do the opposite of everything my anxiety is telling me to do. And eventually, you'll stop being afraid of your anxiety. You're going to stop letting your anxiety run your life. The anxiety might not even go away right away. And that's not even necessarily the goal. Because, I mentioned before, sometimes we're so concerned with just lowering the symptoms, lowering the feeling of anxiety, then by doing that, we don't actually change anything. Because if I'm only focused on lowering my symptoms, I just want to feel calmer. A lot of times people will ask me, well, how do I alleviate the shaking in a social situation? How do I feel more relaxed in a social situation? You don't. Because by doing that, what's really going to happen is you're going to revert back to those same safety behaviors I've talked about in previous episodes, or those same comfort behaviors. You're going to do things that make you feel comfortable, but that's just going to reinforce all your fears. It's going to tell yourself, no, play it safe. Do the thing that makes you feel less anxious. No, that hasn't helped you. That has gotten you absolutely nowhere. We're going to start doing the things that make you more anxious. Nothing that's going to put you into a full-blown panic attack, but let's figure out, like, what could make my day a little bit harder, but I could go home and be proud of myself today. And that's the other important thing. When you actually go and do something, I don't care how the event goes. It could be really embarrassing. Maybe you made a fool out of yourself. The bigger question is, did I do something hard today? Did I do something that I wouldn't have done 6 months ago? And if the answer is yes, give yourself a pat on the back. That's all you need. That is all you need to do, is do the difficult thing and give yourself credit for doing the difficult thing. And then the anxiety stops running your life. When you're out in public, you might still feel the anxiety, but you say to yourself, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it. And here's this weird thing. You start to almost get a high off of that. It's almost like you're trying to prove to yourself and to the anxiety, you don't have control over me anymore, right? We turn that anxiety into excitement. We turn that anxiety into courage, bravery. I'm going to do the brave thing today. I'm going to do the thing that's hard, right? I've mentioned this before. It's similar to people. Let's say you take two people who are going on a roller coaster. Both of those people will feel intense emotional reactions, right? The pit in the stomach, the sweating, the jitteriness, right? One person will describe it as anxiety, another person will describe it as excitement. Logically, it's the same thing, but one person is excited, one person is anxious. That's how we want to look at this. You're still going to feel all the symptoms. The symptoms aren't going to go away right away. That's not going to happen for a way down the road. If you're looking to just feel comfortable and make this anxiety go away so you can socialize, that's not the way to go about it. Because that is, again, that's only going to make you do all those behaviors and those obsessive comfort behaviors that have gotten you in this position in the first place. No, we're going to do the hard thing. We're going to do the thing that makes us feel the most uncomfortable until we don't care that we feel uncomfortable. And then eventually you'll stop thinking about your anxiety and stop obsessing about the physical symptoms because you're just living your life now. I know this is easier said than done, but this is something that helped me personally. And I think, given the fact that, again, the life satisfaction for people with social anxiety is significantly lower than other people, we need to realize that this anxiety is stopping us from living our life. And sometimes we need that kick in the pants, that extra motivation to say, you know what, screw it. I just got to start doing something. I'm at rock bottom. I'm so unhappy with my life. It's time to make some changes. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any comments or any topics you'd like me to cover, you can send them to the email. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.